Angela Yuriko Smith is a third-generation Shimanshu American, award-winning poet, author, and publisher with 20 plus years of newspaper experience. Publisher of Space and Time magazine, established in 1966, two-time Bram Stoker Award winner, and an HWA Mentor of the Year. She shares Authortunities, a free weekly calendar of author opportunities at her website. So look for that when I drop the link into chat. So, Angela, I leave the floor to you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for all the immense organization. We know there are not ghosts back there. That's real people doing this. So thank you. I'm going to read a real-life ghost story that happened to me, and this is out of Unquiet Spirits, and it's part of my essay. The ghost is called a Nikekubi. A Nikekubi, meaning detachable head, is a yokai, or ghost, more specifically, the head of a ghost. By day, she blends in with everyday people. At night, her head detaches from her body to roam the earth, searching for victims. She attacks by screaming to immobilize her victims with terror, and then biting. Many believe she's just another cultural story like the Slavic folktale of Baba Yaga, or a vampire that travels as a firefly in the legends of the Yu people of Ghana and Togo. She has been picked up with creative license to haunt modern culture through anime and games. The creature known as Misdrevious in the popular Pokemon games is Nikekubi. Yes, children of all ages are playing with the vampiric head of a woman. She's not just a story to me, however. I've seen one. I was 13 years old, living in Sweetwater, Tennessee, with my Southern grandparents in a worn-out Victorian-style mansion long past its glory days. Faded red wallpaper with a raised pattern in black velvet, and lead crystal was everywhere. There were too many rooms to count, many of which served some outdated purpose, like the sitting room or the formal dining room. There was a main staircase, and then the hidden back staircase that connected the kitchen to the quarters. For a girl raised on too many ghost stories, it was a brilliant place to explore. It was in one of these rooms, officially known as the formal parlor, that my grandparents kept a fully stocked bar. As owners of an actual licensed bar for many years, they always had plenty of everything booze. I decided to expand my education of alcoholic beverages every Friday at noon when my grandmother would walk across the street to visit Mrs. Jacobs, our elderly neighbor. The trick was to act disinterested as she left. She'd ask if I wanted to go visiting with her. I'd decline, feigning extreme interest in whatever book I was reading until she was out the door. Then I'd stand out of sight in the hall to watch her through the diamond-shaped pane of glass around the door. As soon as I saw her enter Mrs. Jacobs' house, I headed for the formal parlor and the liquor. The day I was introduced to my Nikekubi was like any other until I was a few feet in the room. A loud, sharp noise stopped me in my tracks. Against one window was a big wooden stereo console-type player that included, fancy at the time, an 8-track cassette deck. See, I can't even remember what they're called anymore. An 8-track cassette deck, AM and FM radio, huge wooden speaker cabinets, and a turntable on top covered in an amber plastic half box. It was from that amber plastic that I heard the first sharp rap. It was curious because there was nothing that could hit the plastic cover to make that noise, not from my angle of view. I moved closer to investigate when a second rap sounded right in front of me, and I saw nothing. Nothing had shifted the lightweight box. The inevitable dust that clung to these contraptions was undisturbed. The noise had to be coming from something behind the stereo, out of my view. The third rap sounded as I stepped forward. A noise to my left distracted me. All the pendants and the ornate chandelier were shaking. As they swung together, they sounded like a few dozen people frantically toasting each other with tiny glasses. But from beneath all the tinkling of crystal came another sound, welling up to drown out all the others. It was a rising tempest. I'm still not sure if the sound of rising wind was in the room or in my mind, but within seconds it filled my ears and I could hear nothing else. In the middle of the vibrating chandelier was a distortion in the air, like the heat wave coming off a hot fire. I had a sense it was sentient, perch hovering and fully aware of me. And then it swooped. I've stood in the winds of Hurricane Ivan in 2004 as it laid waste to the Gulf Coast since then, and that hurricane tearing the roof off my neighbor's house was nothing compared to the noise filling my head in that parlor. It was loud enough to drown out my own thoughts. I was stunned and frozen until it swooped down at me. I ran to the hallway, and the sudden silence was as paralyzing as the noise. First deafened with storm, now with the utter absence of it, I turned around. The distortion hovered in the open doorway, rippling nothingness bobbing up and down. The only thing I was positive of was that it was looking at me. I was seen. And then it came at me again with all the accompanying cacophony of shrieking wind. I'm not sure how I made it to the front porch. I have fragments of memory, my hand slipping on the old glass doorknob, the loose way it turned, and then the battered storm door slamming behind me. Again, the noise evaporated with such finality, it shocked me to stillness. I stood on the porch, back to the door, unable to move. I had a sense that if I kept running, it would follow, and eventually it would catch me. Better to face it here, on familiar ground, than in the tobacco fields that surrounded us. Normal sounds filtered into my awareness, just as a different type of awareness came over me. A clear image formed in my mind, as clear as if I had eyes in the back of my head, and it was of the door behind me. I could also see straight ahead to Mrs. Jacobs' house. In my vision of the door behind me, there was a head floating in midair behind the glass. A woman, her skin pale with a doughy, gelatinous texture. She was soaked. Liquid ran down her face, and long black hair as if she had just risen from the water. Her hair was plastered to her bloated face, like flat tentacles. Her mouth gaped open in a silent scream. Her neck was torn from her body. Shreds of waterlogged skin dangled, along with cords and flesh dripping into the carpet. When my grandmother returned from across the street, I told her what had happened, and she believed me. Now I wonder if there was a trail of drip marks from the parlor to the front door, or if she had connected it to a story of previous residents who had been beheaded in a car accident. And that actually was what happened to the previous residents of that house. This certainly wasn't the only supernatural experience in that house, but it was the last I know of. We moved almost immediately, possibly even that night. And that is the story that inspired the poem, the Nikekubi, that I wrote in Tortured Willows. Thank you for listening.